What is going on, everybody? It's Matt Marchese, also known as Islanders Daily. Your home from everything from the four-time Stanley Cup champions, New York Islanders. And on today's episode, a lot of interesting news has occurred today for the New York Islanders, and it's going to be fun to talk about. So to get things started, Patrick Roy has named his first three lines for the season at training camp. Obviously, he did say that things could change here, and they are subject to change, but this is what he's going with right now. And the three lines are, first line is going to be Jonathan Drouin, Bo Horvat, Maxim Shabanov. Second line is Anders Lee, Matt Barzal, and Kyle Palmieri. Third line is Anthony Duclair, J.G. Peugeot, and Simon Holmstrom. And I know I've been talking a lot about Maxim Shabanov on this channel as of late. I've been a big Maxim Shabanov believer all year long. All since this podcast has started, I've gave Shabanov my praises. So clearly the Islanders are seeing the same way I am seeing, as Roy has put Shabanov on that first line with Bo Horvat and Jonathan Drouin, and that's certainly exciting for us Islanders fans. And, I'm going to say a hot take here. I don't want to jinx anything. I don't want to jinx anything at all, but I'm going to go on a crazy hot take and say Maxim Shabanov will win Rookie of the Year this season in the NHL. We're going to knock on wood and not hope to, jinx the poor guy, because I am known to jinx people. I'm known to jinx people. So those are the first three lines that Roy has named. Obviously, there's not a fourth line there, and you can see on the things we're going to be talking about, I have a question saying, what will the fourth line be for the New York Islanders this season? And it's definitely going to be interesting. But yeah, so far those are three lines: Drouin, Horvat, Shabanov, Lee, Barzal, Palmieri, Duclair, Peugeot, Holmstrom. And I really like those lines. I think those are solid lines all the way around. I really like Drouin and Horvat on a line with Shabanov. Certainly interesting. We'll see how it plays out there. Lee, Barzal, and Palmieri. Barzal slots back into the center role where he will be centering Anders Lee and Kyle Palmieri. I like that one. I do. But there's a quote that Barzal said that makes me a little nervous, but we'll dive into that. And then finally, Duclair, Peugeot, Holmstrom. Just a solid third line that the New York Islanders will have. And here's the quote that Matt Barzal said about being on this line. Matt Barzal says, "I'm excited to play anywhere. I love playing with Bo on the wing. I think me and Bo have great chemistry out there. Hopefully we can find ways to get us on the ice still, because I feel like we give our team a good chance of scoring." So we did see that Barzal isn't on the line with Bo Horvat, but he obviously likes playing the wing with Bo Horvat. So it's certainly something interesting to monitor. Obviously, I believe the two of them will be on a unit together in the power play. I feel like that has to be done, that they'll all be on the unit in the power play, and I think that will be done. But yeah, it's definitely a little, interesting to hear Barzal. He's obviously said he's willing to play anywhere, but he really wants to play with Bo Horvat. That's his guy. He thinks they can score the most amount of goals with each other when they are on the same line. But Roy is changing it up. He moved Barzal back to center, Horvat at center, and he's trying, I think, to make the lines more stable, right? Just not a one-line team. He wants to be a two-line, three-line team, and that's why we heard these first three lines announced, and I think the lines are very good, and I'm excited to see what it does. Now, Patrick Roy did joke afterwards saying maybe he shouldn't have told us this, and things are subject to change, but as training camp starts, these will be the three lines for the New York Islanders going forward, and the fourth line is up in the air, and like I said, we will talk about that in a little bit. Transitioning now, Patrick Roy talked a little bit about his relationship with Anthony Duclair and everything that transpired last season when Patrick Roy, called out Duclair, and Roy spoke to Duclair. And he apologized, obviously. He drove all the way to Montreal to apologize and met up with Duclair in person. And Roy says, he had a lot of trust in me, and I felt like that maybe I let him down a little bit there. And it's good to see that both of them are ready to put it behind, right? It was a moment of weakness, I think, for both of them, for Roy and Duclair, and the frustrations of the season just boiled up over time and resulted in, that calling out thing that happened. And then Duclair did say he's close to 100%. He's not fully 100 yet, but he's very close. And he said the timeline after tearing his groin off the bone was 4 to 6 weeks, but he wasn't ready when he returned and shouldn't have been playing. He said that Roy didn't know how much Duclair was still dealing with the injury and said he should have communicated it better with Patrick Roy. So we see the two of them, both taking the blame, right? They're both taking the blame, taking it on the chins and saying, hey, you know what? I could have been better. I should have been better. And yeah. And he said Roy drove to Montreal, which he appreciated. It was just miscommunication all around. And Duclair actually said Waugh didn't owe him an apology and he should have been the one to go forward and say he was still injured. So it's really good to see that these two guys really communicated. The coach and Duclair, they've had a long history with each other as Waugh coached Duclair in junior hockey. So it's good to see that, they hash things out. And then just this quote by Anthony Duclair I want to talk about. It says, I basically played on one leg. As a player, you don't want to be on the sidelines. You want to be playing out there battling with the boys. That's what I was trying to do. Obviously, it wasn't good for anyone for me to be out there. And Duclair, kind of like we've talked about here with the two guys, their quotes and everything, he acknowledged that it wasn't the right decision by him. It wasn't the right decision by Waugh, and he should have communicated it better. And it just is done with now. Both players are ready to move on, a player and the coach are ready to move on and get ready for the season. And I'm excited to see a healthy Duclair and a Waugh, that they've hashed things out. I'm excited to see how they will do this year. And we just talked about Duclair will be starting on the third line for the Islanders this season. And then just a quick little update here is Semyon Varlamov is back on the ice. There was no further update. He just started skating and nothing more on that front. So Semyon Varlamov has started. He will not be ready for the start of the season, I believe. If he is, that would be a miracle in my opinion. But definitely good to see Varlamov starting to skate, get his feet back under him, and get ready for the season because we need all the goalies we can get. We need all the goalies we can get. We do not want to deal with the injuries we dealt with last season where we just had to rely on Ilya Sorokin for the whole year. And finally from there, now, we just talked about it, and here it is, the fourth line. The fourth line, and it's going to be the toughest one to discuss here because there isn't a line, right? My gut is telling me that the fourth line will be Emil Heineman, Casey Cizikas, and Maxim Siplikov. And I know in the comments we do have a Mark Gatcomb, big fan, big believer, but I just don't see a role for Mark Gatcomb to be playing on the Islanders to start the year off. I think he will be a healthy scratch. He's definitely someone we can easily slot in to the lineup. But for right now, I just don't see a world where Gatcomb is playing. I do think it will be Emil Heineman, Casey Cizikas, and Maxim Siplikov. But here's what Matthew Darsh said about Callum Ritchie. He's looked great in camp, Callum Ritchie, and Darsh said if he proves he's ready, he'll make room for him in the NHL and has to see. So we're going to see. Darsh said if there is a possibility that he shows he's ready to play, he'll make room for Callum Ritchie to get right into the NHL. He wants to see how Callum Ritchie performs against other NHLers to start the season. And this makes it even more confusing because then is it a trade on the table for the Islanders? If Callum Ritchie proves that he can play and he's ready for the NHL right away, you have to believe that it will be J.G. Pageau being the one who's going to be shipped out. So definitely something to monitor there on the Callum Ritchie front if he continues to prove. And when preseason start, if he proves that he deserves to be on the roster, I think a trade could be in the works where we will see J.G. Pageau traded. Now, I don't want to go all deep into that in this episode today. So we'll save that a little later down the line when we see how things play out with Callum Ritchie and the New York Islanders and that. But yeah, for right now, like I said, I think the fourth line will be Emil Heineman, Casey Cizikas, and Maxim Siplikov. And that might, in my opinion, that is a very strong lineup for the Islanders. Is it Stanley Cup winning? Probably not. It's probably not. But it's definitely a good, sign, good depth team they have there. And I definitely think the Islanders could easily compete for the playoffs. I don't think the Islanders are getting the respect they deserve this offseason. So yeah, I'm just excited for this season to start, and I can't wait till it gets on the way. So as always, I thank you all for tuning in. If you have anything you want me to talk about, be sure to leave it in the comments, and I will. And as always, let's go Islanders.